in verse 7, it says that he emptied himself. Now this is a confusing word, and this is one of those things that have been a lot of ink spilled about this, but what we see here is that emptied himself, it doesn't mean he lost something. It doesn't mean he came less than what he was before. In fact, the rest of the verse actually explains what emptied himself means. It says he emptied himself by taking on the form of a bondservant. So what that means is that it's emptied is kind of a metaphor for what he did. It means to make himself of no account, make himself of low position, make himself of, it's like going from the President of the United States to being the lowest janitor in the prison, cleaning up the toilets or whatever. That kind of idea. He made himself low. He chose to take on humanity. That's how he made himself low. He didn't empty himself of God, of deity, of divinity. He emptied himself by taking on humanity, by taking on the flesh of humanity. So I guess it's kind of appropriate that we're talking about this as we approach Christmas, because this is what we're talking about. When we're talking about that little baby in Mary's arms, that was God. That was God in the flesh. But he went from unlimited deity to very limited humanity. He was completely unbounded with respect to space or time or any other limitation you can think of. And he wrapped himself in the flesh of a human as a baby. So, I mean, I was struggling to try and think about a way to illustrate this. Think about being put in a full body cast where you can't move any part of your body, and all you can move is your eyeballs. That maybe gets to the idea of how going from unlimited to this limited, constrained existence as a human. This is what God did in becoming. So his humility started well before he got to the cross, well before he was spit at and mocked and whipped. His humility started just when he descended from heaven and he took on the flesh of a human being. But then Paul just piles the ideas on here. When you look at verse 8, going from divinity to humanity is huge. And to be then both deity and human at the same time boggles the imagination. But when he became a human, he didn't become a rich, powerful human. He didn't become the emperor of the world when he came down. I mean, this is where Paul just kind of stacks up all these mind-blowing descriptions of Jesus Christ going lower and lower and lower from his position of God to now he's a man, but he's not just any man. He humbled himself even more, became the lowest kind of man, a despised and mocked criminal. And as that despised and mocked criminal, he was obedient even to the point of death, a death he didn't deserve. And it wasn't just any death. It was the lowest of the low kind of death. It was death on a cross, the most humiliating, excruciating death that we can think of. So this is the kind of descent from position as God, unlimited, all-powerful, down to a human who was put to death on a cross. What other greater example of humility could there ever be? The descent from divinity to humanity alone is more than from going from being a human to an ant or a worm. It's more than that. If Christ set aside his rights and prerogatives in that way, who are we not to do the same thing? This is the ideal of humility